the honor of hosting. Great. Let's get this off my screen. First of all, I would like to acknowledge all of you for your devotion to really learning something new, but also your devotion to the unity of our community in the world. And I thank you all for being here tonight. We're going to get started with Mr. Lucci going to sing us a song, and then we'll have a prayerful song, and then we'll have another video that I'll show, and then I'll introduce you to our guest speaker for tonight. So, and I would like to really make a special thank you and acknowledgement to Farouz, who consistently and purposefully hosts these meetings on a weekly basis. Really bringing all of us together is really a symbol of her love for a unified world and a community that knows that we can make a difference. So thank you, Farouz, for that. Go ahead, Mr. Lucci.
Okay, let's pray. Katakanlah Tuhan mencukupi segala sesuatu di atas segalanya, dan tak ada di langit maupun di bumi yang mencukupi kecuali Tuhan. Sesungguhnya Dia sendirilah yang Maha Tahu, yang Maha Pemelihara, yang Maha Kuasa. Katakanlah Tuhan mencukupi segala sesuatu di atas segalanya, dan tak ada di langit maupun di bumi yang mencukupi kecuali Tuhan. Sesungguhnya Dia sendirilah yang Maha Tahu, yang Maha Pemelihara, yang Maha Kuasa.
Thank you for your beautiful willingness to share with all of us and start us with a prayer in your language. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and we're going to listen to another beautiful song that speaks to our unity.
Make us as waves of the sea, as flowers of the garden, united, agreed through the bounties of thy love. As waves of the sea, as flowers of the garden, united, agreed through the bounties of thy love. And make all mankind as stars shining from the same heights of glory. As perfect fruits growing upon thy tree of life. Make us as waves of the sea, as flowers of the garden, united, agreed through the bounties of thy love. As waves of the sea, as flowers of the garden, united, agreed through the bounties of thy love. And make all mankind as stars shining from the same height of glory. As perfect fruits growing that guideth in darkness. Love is a light that guideth in darkness. Love is a light that guideth in darkness.
Well, I hope that you got to see the visuals of that. I just realized in my chat that, oops, what's going on here? Can you see me still? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hold on. Hold on.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Technical glitch. Anyways, welcome back. And I hope that that song, at least the words, if you didn't see the visuals, sort of brought some solace to your spirit and unifies us in love, which is what life is all about. I'd like to take a moment now just to introduce Patti Jenkins, who's going to be our guest speaker. And she has her Bachelor's of Arts, her Bachelor's of Education, and she's a certified Ontario teacher, as well as being a Master Facilitator with the Virtues Project. And she's been involved with the Virtues Project for 21 to 22 years now. And she used this training in her school. She was a high school teacher that brought it to her community and taught it in school to all the students and implemented a program for the students that they carried with them. And I've had the pleasure of meeting some of her graduates, which they speak prolifically as they practice their virtues, and you can see it shining through them. She really did this to create a culture of community in her school. And it was meaningful and transformative. And outside school, Patti retired last year. Outside of school, she's a daughter, a sister, a mother, a partner, and a grandparent, and devoted to all of those and to all of us in the community beyond Parry Sound, which is where she's from. So Patti, I'll let you take over. And I just feel so honored to be here tonight with all of you. Thank you. You're on mute, Patti. Sorry.
That's a good way to start, right? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I mean, the first thing I want to do is say thank you to Firuz for inviting me to speak. I'm really honored, and I'm so excited to share what I've learned by using the Virtues Project. And Firuz, I wanted to acknowledge you. I wanted to acknowledge you for your service and devotion. I really appreciate that you've created this incredible space, and the service that provides to the world is remarkable. So thank you for that. I love you. I'm so grateful you're part of my life. And Joni, thank you, my co-pilot. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I really appreciate that. So I'm going to jump in here. And I mean, the first thing really we got to talk about is the title, Cultivating Character in the World. And on the Virtues Project website, it states that the mission of the Virtues Project is to inspire people of all cultures to remember who they really are and to live by their highest value. And I think this is a quote that Firuz shared. And as we know, who we really are, we're noble beings. And we have in potential in our hearts all of the virtues in potential, just like a seed has in potential all of the virtue, the whole tree in the seed. We in our hearts have in potential all of the virtues because we are noble souls. That's why on the poster, the Virtues poster, there's a tree to get at this idea that, you know, from a little seed comes a whole tree, and from our hearts can come all of these virtues. And as Baha'u'llah says, regard man as a mine rich in gems of inestimable value, and of course those gems are our virtues. So the Virtues Project really helps connect with that. How do you get at those gems, those virtues? So before we get into it anymore, and to keep looking at this idea of cultivating character around the world, I wanted to connect with all of you and see how we are in the world. We have here in our room the world. So if you're comfortable, I would love it if people would use the chat and be able to say where they are in the world and what virtue you're bringing with you tonight. So, and you can see the Virtues poster in the background there to take a look. I'm going to start. I'm going to say I'm Patti Jenkins, and I'm from Parry Sound, Ontario, Canada, which is north of Toronto, a few hours. And I'm on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe people. And that relationship is very near and dear to my heart. And tonight, I'm bringing the virtue of enthusiasm. So folks, if you are familiar with the chat, you click on that chat button there at the bottom bar, and it comes up on the right-hand side. You don't have to do this, but it'd be great. And you can say, where are you? What's our global reach here?
So we have Patti in Parry Sound, and I'm Joan Beaubien from Montreal, Quebec. And we have Jackie from LA on the land of the Tongva people, and she's bringing the virtue of curiosity. The virtue I'm bringing is gratitude. And we have Renee Sandell from Bethesda, Maryland, bringing optimism. And we have Barbara Beaubien from Victoria, BC, bringing openness. Welcome. And Faria from Burlington, Ontario, bringing all his virtues.
We are coast to coast and then some.
And Sheila, currently archived in New Helen, Michigan. She's bringing love and hugs. Nice. Nice.
Beautiful.
And Donna. Oh, hello, Donna. Welcome from Arizona, United States. Nice. And Jim, scholarship from Cambridge, Ontario. Memory of Dan and Linda writing first draft on my little Mac way back then.
Oh
Beautiful.
my goodness.
Wow.
Wow.
Welcome, Jim.
Well, if you're comfortable, we'd love to keep seeing where you're from and what you're bringing with you. And I would just like acknowledge everyone that for using their courage and putting that out there. And just, it allows us a moment to recognize, to literally cultivate character in the world, because we're from all over the world. And just by asking you to think about what virtue you're bringing with you is starting to connect us with character. Got a couple more there, Joni.
Yes, I see we've got Lorene from Burlington, Ontario, bringing the virtue of patience. And Nargis Basanti from Malaysia, bringing love and unity in diversity. And Donna bringing thankfulness as a virtue. Also, we have Mr. Primal from Australia, friendliness for everyone, nice, with everyone. And Helen from Burlington, Ontario, bringing awe. Love that. Yes, it's pretty amazing. We can all be together all over the world.
Thank you so much for doing that. Okay, I'm going to attempt to share the screen, and I've had some weirdness with that, so I'll see what happens. Oh, no, we're good. Okay, so we're talking about cultivating character in the world, and so I want to start first by talking about the Virtues Project. It started in 1991. My youngest daughter was 1 year old, and I actually met Linda Popov that January at a women's retreat, and she said she wouldn't be doing women's retreats very much anymore because she had this thing, the Virtues Project. And so that was sort of the first I heard about it, and I just got the very first cards and started using them in my parenting. But it was that long ago, like 31 years ago, and it's been introduced in over 135 countries. And I looked it up, there's 195 countries in the world. So it's been introduced in about 70% of the countries in the world. So it does have that global reach. And the quote on the website says that it has inspired and mobilized people worldwide to commit acts of humanity and service and to heal violence with virtues, and to lead with character. So that has been sort of the global impact. And further to that, in September 2021, there was the 30th anniversary of the Virtues Project, and there was a conference online, and it was presented in two hemispheres. There was the Eastern conference that happened, and then the Western conference that happened, and it was very intentionally global and diverse and inclusive. And all of the people globally who are Virtues Project facilitators and Master Facilitators and Virtues Project enthusiasts, they're all using these same tools to in their lives, in their work, and in their families. So it's really cultivating character around the world. Now, of course, I can't go all around the world and do that. That's not physically possible. So what I do is I go from that big picture, that macrocosm, and I go into the microcosm. I take action right here and right now. So what happened was, actually, I started doing a Virtues Project sharing circle, and it was inspired by Dara Feldman, who is like the master facilitator, and she's in the States. She initiated a Virtues sharing circle in March 2020 when the lockdown happened, and people were like, what is going on? And she did one every day in March 2020 at 1 o'clock, Monday to Friday. And I went to Dara's sharing circles. And it was through that, we kind of processed what was going on, but we did it by talking about a virtue. And then when she fulfilled her commitment at the end of March, she said she was just going to do Tuesdays moving forward. And so I thought, okay, I'll do Fridays. And I started a Virtues Sharing Circle on Fridays in April 2020. And I've been doing it ever since. So it's been 2.5 years that we've been doing this Virtues Sharing Circle. And I did my statistics from 2021. And in that year, I missed 2 where there wasn't a replacement covering for me. And then I think I had 6 times when someone else hosted the circle because I couldn't be there. But every time but 2, it happened that year. So it's been a very consistent thing. And I'm going to go back here just for 1 minute. And in doing that, we've really noticed the impact of it and the effect of it. So at the 2nd year anniversary, we sort of asked the question, what's the impact? And I'm going to be sharing with you some of that tonight. What I want to do is there's 2 things that I need you to know. I need to explain, so that I'm not making assumptions here, what exactly is the Virtues Project? What does it consist of? And I also need to explain, what does the Virtues Project Sharing Circle look like? And so Joni and I are going to do a fishbowl. So I'm just going to put this here for a second. We're going to do a fishbowl where we're going to demonstrate for you what it looks like, what happens in the Virtues Sharing Circle. And then from you watching our little demonstration, I'm going to unpack it, and I'll be able to tell you what happens in the Virtues Sharing Circle and what exactly are the components of the Virtues Project. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. And Joni and I, oh, wait a minute. We were going to do the virtue of kindness. And what happens in the Virtues Sharing Circle is it's really quite simple. A virtue is picked. When people come to the circle, we start off by just going over the boundaries and the rules of the circle. And then we have a honoring of the spirit, which is a strategy of the Virtues Project. So we read the card of the virtue that we're looking at. And then usually we have a song or maybe poems or writings or quotes or something sort of artistic and uplifting about that virtue. And that's our beginning. So what Joni and I do, we'll read the card. And after that, start up the circle, and I usually go first and I share, how does that virtue speak to me? So the question for everybody in the circle is, when you read this virtue card, is it an invitation or is it a confirmation? So when we read the card kindness, and I look at that, I'm going to say to myself, am I looking at and going, oh yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's what's going on in my life. This is confirming. This is what's been happening for me, is kindness. Or is it Am I reading it and going, oh my gosh, I really need that now. That's the thing that's going to help me. So is it the invitation or is it the confirmation? Or sometimes there's a particular line in the card that kind of jumps out at you and you're like, that sticks right now because of a certain reason, but you're using it for a teachable moment, which is another strategy of the Virtue Project. And you're trying to just react to it and see what it means to you right now in this day. And then you share that as, you know, however you're comfortable in sharing that with everybody. And the next person in the circle, will be Joni, then gives you an acknowledgement. And that acknowledgement is using a third strategy of the Virtues Project was to use the language of the virtues. And what would happen is, just like I said to Firuz, I want to acknowledge you for your service and your devotion, because you host this beautiful circle for people all over the world. So what I've done is I had a beginning, want to acknowledge you, and then I had you, service, and then I had the evidence for how I saw that virtue in Firuz. She's hosting this circle. There's people from Australia and everywhere, Malaysia, all over the continent here in North America. So you have the opening, you have the virtue, and you have the evidence. And that's a virtues acknowledgement. That's using the language of virtues. So you would do that, and that's all that's said. That's all that we say to each other, these acknowledgements. And then it's the next person's turn. And it goes around the circle. And when it comes back to the last person, I acknowledge them, and that the circle is complete. And after that, we just sort of go, okay, so is there anything else that needs to be said? Anything else on people's hearts and minds? How is this helpful? How is this meaningful? We ask sort of those kind of consolidating questions at the end. And then we choose a virtue for the next week. So here we go, Joe. You and me, we're going to do this. I'm going to put up the card. If I can find it. Yes. Okay. Do you want to read it?
Sure. Kindness is caring that springs from compassion. We have genuine concern for the welfare of others. We are warm, friendly, and ready to help. We listen for needs beneath the words. We give tender attention in simple ways that brings others happiness. Kindness is the daily bread of love. When we feel angry, we resist the temptation to be cruel. We balance honesty with tact. We are good stewards of the earth and all living things. We remember to be kind to ourselves. When we fill our own cup, our kindness naturally overflows to others. And a quote from Mother Teresa: be the living expression of God's kindness. Kindness in your face, kindness in your eyes, kindness in your smile. And the practice of kindness. I have empathy for others. I notice what people need. I love to be helpful. I am thoughtful in little ways. I practice good habits that help the earth. I'm a good caregiver to myself. I'm thankful for the gift of kindness. It awakens my heart.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joni, for that service, reading the cards so beautifully. Okay, so I am going to try and pin me, and then I'm going to pin Joni beside me. Can you guys see me and Joni side by side? Yes? No?
We're close.
Yes, we do.
You do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, kindness, I'm feeling like that is a real invitation at this time for me. And it's think it's a lot for some of the subtleties there in the card. And in particular, what I need right now is that capacity to, it said, listen for the needs beneath the words. Because I think that in my life and in my world, there's a lot of big things that are happening in people's lives. And sometimes they, call you up and they're talking to you, and it's about just sort of the regular what's going on today or tomorrow or the next day. But really underneath it, there's big things happening. So I need to settle into that kindness and be really present for people for what's underneath the words. Because I know that there's lots of big things happening. And I'm really grabbing onto that idea that kindness is the daily bread, this thing that you need daily for love. And of course, love is everything. Love's just, it. So that's how it's speaking to me right now. I want to just make sure that it's a daily practice, and so that I can be loving and sort of be there for what's happening for people underneath the words.
Patti, that was beautiful. And I really heard your commitment to becoming more discerning and mindful in those moments, to really see through what's really going on from a place of love and looking at what has to happen to bring love to the presence of what you're in and what you're doing and all the circumstances around you. So in that there's healing. So
Thank you.
Really thank you for your thoughtfulness. And as I was reading the virtue card, I much like Patti, we listen for the needs beneath the surface and find ways to give tender attention to that. And, one of the things is that it seems that there are a lot of people suffering around me. And I've been really caught between sometimes wanting to do everything for everybody and recognizing that if it's not asked for, maybe I'm imposing too much kindness on a situation and trying to do too much for somebody, that it takes away. I've had this experience just recently where I'm actually maybe overstepping boundaries. And am I really being kind to that person if I'm overstepping the boundaries that have been put up? So for me, it's the growth part of this kindness virtue is in really listening to the needs of what's really beneath the surface. And kindness is the daily bread of love. And like everything, if I'm not feeling loving towards myself, maybe my self-talk is really being destructive, then I can't really be loving and kind to those around me either. So I've been seeing that more and more clearly, especially since working with the virtues, and more importantly, just really I keep wanting to develop myself in a deeper way with a deeper understanding to that spiritual place. So to be balanced honesty with tact, I guess, in that daily act of giving bread and receiving bread, the bread of love. So thank you. That's my share.
Well, thank you, Joni. Wow. I want to acknowledge your compassion for people suffering right now, your love and compassion for that situation. And also your respectfulness in becoming aware of there's boundaries that even though you want to, you'd be inclined to step in and do something, it is actually more respectful not to. So I want to acknowledge that love and compassion and that respect. And that caring for yourself, that virtue of caring directed at yourself is so important. So I'm gonna tag that on there. Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna unpin us there. Whoops. Am I unpinned? There we go. So where are we now? That is, okay. I'm gonna hook up with my slideshow again. That is what happens in the circle. That is the experience. And you know, Joni's acknowledgement of me is just like, holy smokers, that was just gorgeous. So we all just sort of strive to figure out how to do that and how to do that well. But when we're doing that, we are doing, whoops, all of the strategies of the Virtues Project. So this is what the Virtues Project is. It's those gorgeous Virtues cards that were written by Linda Kavlin Popov. She wrote the content. She was very reflective and meditative and wrote that content for each of the cards. And then there's the 5 strategies. So you've kind of got the information to really help deepen your understanding of the virtues, and you've got these 5 tools about how to then use them. Using the language of the virtues, and I taught you the breakdown of the virtues acknowledgement, and it's just the secret sauce. It's the magic weapon. It is amazing how impactful just that virtues acknowledgement is. Using the language of the virtues is one strategy. You can also use the language of the virtues to guide people, to correct people. There's also recognizing your teachable moments. And we did that in the sharing circle just by responding to the virtue that came up for the day. We set clear boundaries. The clear boundaries are that when you share, people don't interrupt, they don't interject, they don't criticize or give you advice or do anything. They just listen to you. And then afterwards, they give you an acknowledgement. It's really quite structured, but it's had such a wonderful impact that we're quite comfortable with this structure. There are very clear boundaries. The honoring the spirit happens in a couple of ways. One is sort of that moment at the beginning, like we had with this talk, with the prayer and the video. Also just reading the card is a way of honoring the spirit. Giving someone a virtues acknowledgement is a way of honoring their spirit. Anything uplifts. And offering companioning. So companioning it's how you are accompanying the person. It's how you are there for the person. So the fact that Joni and I were listening to each other, we were fully, deeply present to each other with respectful silence. We weren't just not listening, we were listening, but we weren't interjecting at all. And then in the end, acknowledging with a virtues acknowledgement. That's companioning in its simplest form. Okay, so let me explain here. When we got the virtue circle, when we got to the 2-year mark, we decided what I'm just going to go here. What is it that this has been the impact of this sharing circle on us for after 2 years? And there's some of us who've been there for the full 2 years. And so we had the one time where that was our question. I actually recorded it. I normally don't record a virtue sharing circle, just to keep things private and confidential. And we recorded this and I transcribed it, and then I analyzed it like I learned how to do back in women's studies when I did my thesis. And I looked for the themes that were emerging in what everybody had to say about how they felt this impacted their lives. And the themes that emerged were first about context, the circle itself, and then about sort of the changes that happened, and then within what spheres of our interaction with others did it happen. So the context part of it was that everybody was talking about how the circle is a safe place, that it's a lens through which we see the world, and that it's experiential learning. So those were really important, just the nature of the circle. Your experience learning, it's a safe place, and it's this lens that you're looking at through the world. So I'll explain more of those later. And then it impacted us on the sort of the personal level with growth, on the relationship level with transformation, and then on the community level with connection. So, and then there was a little something special afterwards that seemed to pop out that I'll share. So I'll go back to sharing, and we'll take a look at what we found. Okay, so I explained the themes. So the experiential learning, the fact that all 5 strategies are embedded in the virtue sharing circle is important, because it's like, and these are all quotes. I didn't put all the quote marks in because it gets really hard to read, but people were saying it only happens when you show up and you do it. It's a practice. It's like a muscle that needs to be exercised. Doing these virtues acknowledgements is tricky. It doesn't just roll off your tongue, right? You got to kind of figure out how to say this stuff, because it doesn't yet feel natural to a lot of us. And one of the things that Dan Popov said during the 30th anniversary of the Virtues Project was that his hope was that while doing some of these strategies is work and feels awkward to some of us, he's hoping that within a generation it'll be easier, and then the next generation it'll just be the way it's done, the way people speak to each other. So that's it's acknowledged for sure that it takes some work. It takes some to make it sort of an easy thing in your language. But it is the work. It's the work that needs to be done. One needs to do the work. This is the work. And one thing that was really helpful that one of the participants said was that it's intentional. It's not just a hi, how are you kind of a conversation. It's actually it's deeper than that. And she said that we come knowing that we're going to be asked to dig, but that is going to let us rise. So there was some trust there in the process. And another thing that the experience of doing this week after week, year after year, was that you're focusing on the positive. I mean, that's the rules, that's the boundaries. This is what you're doing. And when we know that when you focus on the positive, it grows, and people have actually went, oh, I experienced the growth. And we know, Abdul Baha said that if a person has 10 bad qualities and 1 good quality, focus on the good quality and it grows. So that's literally what we've been doing. Okay. It's a lens. So when I'm talking about this, and you come into the circle and you're talking about kindness and you respond to that, but you still end up talking about what's happening in your life or your family or your community or your country. I mean, I referred to, things that I'm sensing are going on in my world. Joni did as well. So it's not as though you don't bring those things to the conversation, but you bring it through this lens of a virtue, and it just uplifts it. It's not as negative. And in those early days of the pandemic, that was so helpful because it was scary, and we could have been going through a lens of fear and anger and confusion, and instead we brought it through kindness and love and generosity and gratitude, and still had to deal with those difficult things, but did it through this lens. And one of the comments from one of the participants was that they're learning to use that lens to view people in their lives who maybe they've had difficulties with, and to be able to go and work through that in a way that is kinder and gentler and more loving. So you can see how the small, what we're doing right here and now, is then going out and impacting our world. The safe place, this was so important. It's a place where we built trust and trustworthiness. There's no backbiting. There's no place for it. It's, where would you put that? It doesn't fit. There's no backbiting, and there's no negativity, and there's no interrupting. And when you share what you share, you get acknowledged for the best of you, your virtues. So people ended up feeling supported, cared for, supported with no judgment. People were saying that any shame, any embarrassment that they would feel maybe out the first few times, they just let that go eventually, because they just felt entirely loved, right? And it became a very sacred place created by everyone. So you've got this experiential learning in a very safe place, and you're looking through this lens of the virtues. That is the virtual experience that we've created. And then we had impacts in terms of growth, transformation, connection with ourselves and our relationships and others. So the growth, what people were saying was that they grew as a person, as a teacher, as an artist, as a counselor, as whatever it was that they did. But not just did people recognize their growth, but they saw it in each other. Like over the 2 years, they recognized how each other has changed, and were able to reflect that back to each other. Within the circle, people were saying, this is where I get my direction. This is where I feel steady. And it just became such an essential part of their week, to have that moment and help to learn to be kind and gentle with ourselves. Just like Joni was saying, she's learning that she needs to care for herself in order to be able to care for others. And all the virtues cards have on them an aspect of turning that virtue to yourself and giving yourself that virtue as well, which is really important for our own personal growth. As stated again about the self-consciousness and embarrassment, to being able to speak and react and it just be themselves. It felt empowering to people. They could just be themselves, and they started to see themselves as that noble being and honored their own dignity and value. And then some were like saying, okay, I'm taking this, and in my world, when something happens, I'm trying to recognize that teachable moment as it happens in real life, and then choose how I'm going to react to it, rather than feel like I'm being bowled over by it, that kind of thing. So there was a lot of personal growth acknowledged. In terms of relationships, oh, sorry. I can't see under the bar there, but oh well. It changed how people were, how they behaved with other people, how they were responding to their friends and families. And when they started responding differently, using virtues acknowledgements with their friends and family, it started to change those relationships. It shifted relationships with partners. And people gained their own confidence in recognizing the virtues in others because we had practiced it in the circle. Some of the people in the circle shared it directly, the Virtues Project directly with their family, but also others just modeled using the language of the virtues and giving acknowledgements with their grandchildren, with their adult children, with the people in their lives. And again, this idea that it helps you pause and then see the good in the other people in your life and decide how you're going to react. We felt like we were walking the walk, talking the talk, and at the same time receiving wisdom from the group that inspires us because we see each other living this life with meaning and purpose. Such exciting findings. We felt so connected. This is so weird because it's virtual, right? This is all done virtually, but people felt like this is my family. It's connection and social connectedness, and it's meaningful connection. It's sacred. They talked about the sacred connectedness, the gift of connectedness. Actually feeling more connected virtually than we did face to face before the lockdown, where we actually felt more isolated. And some of us acknowledge that it's the only social thing we voluntarily show up for. Like, this is the meeting that we're not going to miss. And then there's lots of other meetings that we got to go to, but this is the one that you're not going to miss. So there's something about that. I live alone, but I'm not lonely. Thank you. That's just so true in this experience of the last couple of years. This has been truly a source of friendship to people. And I love everybody in the circle, and I know they love me, and I've not met many of them. Who have I met? Margie, that's it. People feeling like these are the best friends they've ever had, and really feeling the deeper connection in the circle, deeper than the connection that they have with their own friends, and knowing that these people are important. We really created a neighborhood, and Baha'is know how important the neighborhood is, and sort of getting to know your neighborhood and being with your neighbors. And so this has happened in a virtual way, in a very real way for me and for the people in the circle. We're a loving family, a loving neighborhood. We look out for each other. It's an interesting thing to have that happen virtually. And I think that it's the how we do it that is really important. That whole not interrupting really allows people to be honest and vulnerable and, courageously open with each other. Okay, so here's something else. The weird bit that seemed to show up in the data I was looking at is where, how does this fit in? Like, that people looked at each other and they looked at them, they saw them and saw, you're powerful, you're noble. I value the gifts in you. I find humanity here, and I'm learning how to love you. I love humanity. And it felt, I mean, it's divine, right? It's the magic and the mysticism. Valuing the sacred place connected, the sense of the sacred, this understanding that meaningful connection is sacred. It really felt like we're doing big work and feeling like it spiritualizes our consciousness. All these comments are what the reality that people were experiencing. Just to close off, one of the quotes was that the weekly connection, being vulnerable, building trust, openness, and all with an intention for our own personal growth and the growth of humanity, that was really key and important. How we showed up mattered. We were companioning each other. We were using the language of the virtues to acknowledge each other. And over time, week by week, year by year, we experienced that acceptance and loving kindness. And it was transformative. It allowed us to lay down the embarrassment, shame, any of those things, and to feel really seen and heard and valued, and therefore begin to recognize and honor our own dignity and value. So that was really empowering. And it empowered us to choose our words, to choose our reaction, to see the virtues in other people, and to do that, you know, to acknowledge that we have humanity here in our circle. We love humanity, and then we have faith in humanity as we move out to the rest of our world. So we have the small picture. I am more aware in my life, my daily life, to pause and recognize the whole array of virtues, of the good that there is in every person I interact with. And then if we look to the big picture, to cultivating character in the world, find humanity here. And the whole idea of loving humanity for me comes into play. Humanity has the potential to become spiritual and grow more and create a positive, loving, united community. And this is a window that I have been able to experiment and experience this with. So this reality of the loving of, I'm going to drop this for a minute, the reality of the oneness of humanity and the diversity of humanity, and loving that humanity. And what does that feel like? It's like that was the muscle that we were exercising in the soul, which made us then look at the rest of the world and see people in that more positive light. And it somehow informed us, how are we going to do that? How are we going to love humanity? You know, this is how we do it. We find their virtues. We look for the positive in them. We acknowledge it. We set our clear boundaries so that we're still taking care of ourselves and we're not allowing injustice or anything like that. But yeah, it's given us just so much to work with. Let me just make sure I've said everything. That is really my closing statement. And I think I've taken us from the big picture to this little circle and then back out to the big picture again. At least that's what I hoped I would do. And before I pass it over to Joni for the Q&A, when we were talking, Joni and I thought that people might want to try a virtual sharing circle. So we set up a Zoom link for next Wednesday night. And if any of you want to experience a virtue sharing circle, we would be happy to host that and tell you how it goes and introduce you to the process and have it with you. So I'll just, how about I share the final screen? Boom. There it is. Okay. So arraywithvirtues.com, that's my website. And Joni and I were going to offer a sharing circle on Unity on November 2nd at 7. If you're interested. And maybe what we can do is just put the Zoom link and everything in the chat for people to grab if they wanted to do that, or maybe Farouz could help us out with that. I'm going to stop sharing there. And then just the last thing I want to say is I want to thank Joni for being a host with me and collaborating. It's so fun. And I acknowledge your steadfastness and your excellence, and it just made me feel really supported. Thank you. And thank you again, Farouz, for having me tonight. I guess that's it. Oh.
Well, Patti, I hadn't seen the presentation, but I want to really honor you for your thoughtfulness and the time that it took for you to go through everything and put all of the collection of comments together in such a profound way that really painted the picture of the real deep connection that happens in these circles and the multi-dimensions that you showed it and shared it from with your wisdom that I know I've seen many times over the last couple of years. but really your devotion to mankind and to humanity, and to really trying to make this world a better place. Starting it during the pandemic shows the love and the care you have, not just for your community, but for the greater world. And taking the initiative to form your own circle after being inspired by somebody else truly is a gift that I'm grateful for, because I have been a beneficiary of that collective wisdom that has grown through all of us in the duration of time that we were meeting. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
And where to go from here? First of all, are there questions that people have that maybe have percolated through listening to this? And Jahala, I noticed your virtue cards earlier when you were talking about the virtues. You picked, you went and got yours. So does anybody have a question, or maybe somebody who's been part of a virtue circle would like to share a little bit about what that's been for them? I open this up. This is our collective time together for all of us to continue our connectedness in love and unity and expanding ourselves. So take a moment to think.
I will
think
speak.
there's a hand there.
I am very, very grateful for your really, your perceptiveness, your clarity, Patti, and your initiative to get these circles going and inspiring. Because, and I thank Joni because her commitment to it's like the wave and trickling down. It's been effective in my life personally, and even today. I liked how you spoke of confirming virtue, or a what was the other?
Invitation.
The invitation, because today it just made clarity. I realized after I had said something that to somebody it wasn't very kind, and so I apologized and acknowledged their helpfulness. And it was just so great having some of the basic groundness of the virtue language to actually help me get through that without letting myself be beating up myself. So I'm very grateful for Joni's commitment and her loyalty and her firm commitment to have the love and unity and cooperation of all people in the world. And I appreciate everybody here today, and just hearing all this stuff was so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barb, for having the courage to go first and share with vulnerability and humility how this has actually been helpful for you, and especially today in a specific situation. So thank you for your courage. I appreciate that. Anybody else have a question? Yes, go ahead, Renee.
Oh, I was just going to thank you both for drawing the attention to what it takes to build community, especially in a time of isolation. And it's been really, I've been in both of your groups. I've been in the Friday group. I'm a regular. I never miss. And it has been so grounding. And it is also the kind of thing that evolves. So I think that you implied that, but I just wanted to address that there's an evolution that happens that really grounds individuals and the group, and new people come, and that's very welcome as well. So as a new person comes, they are invited to speak and share, but not, there's no pressure. And it's been really, I don't know, I'm almost thinking of like flowers opening up. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. Thank you thank you for just tweaking those bits about that it was an evolution. It didn't happen immediately, and that it's an open circle. People come if they could come. Some people we stop seeing after a while, life gets busy, and then new people come. And it's very interesting how it's functioned. We've had from, like maybe an average of 9 people each week, but then we had as much as 18 people there. And actually to think of, how are we going to do this? Because that's a lot of people. It's hard to do it in an hour and 20 minutes. So, but then it changed again, and it ebbed, and so we didn't ever have to make any big decisions.
Thank you. Very clarifying. I appreciate that. And Renee, yes, your contribution is an evolution. It's a practice.
Yeah.
Our virtues muscle.
I was just going to add that I've been in 2 groups. So I've been in a Tuesday group, and Patty's in that as well. And so there have been different formats. We have been reading different books by Linda Popoff, and that have been just amazing, breaking it down, taking apart, Pace of Grace. Anyway, so I mean, there really are lots of ways of doing it. But Patty, I thought you were going to tell them about your spinner. For how we got.
Oh, I had how, like, there's a little bit of a, how do you pick the virtues? And when we were hitting the second year, I thought, well, because we would get to the end of our sharing and we do, what virtue do we need next week? And we would think in terms of what was happening and what do we need? Maybe we need more compassion. And so we would look at that virtue. But we realized that we don't know, like in that one Virtues Project deck, there are 100 virtues. We don't know them all real well. So it's not going to be something that we automatically go to. So we decided in that second year, just make sure that we've looked at them all at least once. And there's this online app, Wheel of Names, I think, .com, that one of the younger members of the group showed me. And I put all the virtues in it that we hadn't done yet. And we get to the end of our circle and call it up, and you just click on it and it spins like a roulette wheel and just lands on a virtue. And then that's the one we did the next week. And it was so interesting because sometimes you would look at, sometimes I call the kindergarten virtues, like the ones that you think because, like, of course, respect. But then when you really look at it and get into it, oh my gosh, it becomes something much deeper, much more multifaceted. And it was really interesting to look at some of those ones you think, and then get really right in there. Yeah. So now we've done all 100. So we're starting over on the ones that did a long time ago.
And even when we do some of the same virtues again, at that point in time, like everything in life is dynamic, it takes on a whole different meaning.
Yeah.
And who you are in that moment comes into that. So it's endless, really, the possibilities for that.
Yeah.
But, so thank you for.
Yeah. Sorry, Joni. Shala, do you have your hand raised? It's hard to see on my screen.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Thank you for seeing that. Very observant.
Thank you so much. I really love the way you put the 2 parts together. You were very complimentary, interactive. It was wonderful watching you 2 work together. Really touching the way you reacted to each other. And it certainly brings out the Virtue Project. I have had a little bit of a history with this project. We were living in China and then moved to Singapore. Linda had gone to Australia to train a group of people. And so we heard about it and we thought, oh, wow, this is a fabulous project to bring to Singapore and use it with teachers. So we got the training, and we invited some teachers from the schools in Singapore at the Baha'i Center, and we did luncheon, and we did the project we did it over a period of 4 weeks. And we enjoyed it, I think, tremendously. And the teachers loved it. Some of the teachers were teaching English to Chinese who were invited to come from China to Singapore. Some of them were teaching at schools, and a few were in a private school. So it was a combination of groups. And it was so successful that when I moved back to US and moved to Alabama, and I was doing special education, working with No Child Left Behind, and I was taking care of the control group in one of the schools, and they were having so much difficulty. They had a police car always parked in front of the school because they had so much difficulty with students, that I suggested it to the principal. What about if we had a virtue each week, and the children, the teachers, and everyone would be working on that virtue, and then we would discuss it and see how it goes. So she looked at my cards, because I got my cards, I had my video, I had my book of songs, and and so she looked through them, and she looked at the back, and she said, wow, this is fantastic. Goodness, I said, and I had such a pride in doing and realizing and telling her that it really came from Canada. Wow. So I was plugging that in. And so we started with that. And after about 10th week, the principal moved her desk into the corridor, sat in the corridor. And, because so many kids would be kicked out of the class because they were really misbehaving. And she would have them sit there, and she would have them choose a card. And then they had to write down the quotation and think about something that they would do with that. And then every beginning on Monday, they would announce the virtue of the week, and they would go through it. They had absolutely no idea about the Baha'i faith or anything to do with it. And then it was really towards this second year that she asked me, and she said, what are they Christians? I said, well, in a way they are, but they're gone beyond Christianity into a new phase of Christianity. It's called the Baha'i faith. And she said, I'm so glad I had not told her ahead of time, because she was Southern Baptist, and it would have absolutely, she would not have done the project. So, but by this time, everybody was hooked on it. And so we got a set of cards, we got the song books, and these would go on one of the songs each week on after the virtue was announced. And some of the kids loved some of the songs better than the other. The one that I'm creative, I am myself, won the prize. That was is absolutely adored. And the other one, love, 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 that was good too. So I have never used it the way you have done it, but I have come to realize, this is my granddaughter, Roxanne. Hello.
Hello, Roxanne.
Nice to see you all. So we were just sort of talking. I had no idea this was what you were going to talk about, but we were talking about some of the virtues and how we can be positive. When I lived sorry, I'm going to take one more minute. When I was living in Alabama, I came across a little pamphlet written by a Christian woman that I also used, and it's called Balcony People. And she writes this tiny little pamphlet that I love. She said, balcony people are those who make you feel good about yourself, make you feel what you want to achieve, and make you feel you love and are loved. And then there are basement people. Basement people make you feel terrible about yourself. You make you feel you cannot achieve and you can never do anything well. So be a balcony person and live with balcony people. So I have added that to my virtue project, and I use it.
And I use it in my children's classes, and I use it with my JYs and with the youth. Actually, it's become the foundation of everything else that we do in the institute process, because it's interwoven with the institute process. Thank you for giving me the time to speak. She wants to say something, Roxanne. If you
Go ahead,
don't.
Roxanne.
Yeah, so I kind of just like I ended up here by chance, but I'm so thankful that, I mean, nothing is by chance sometimes, but I'm very thankful to be here. And actually, you know, it has answered one question that I had in my heart, that I've been having in my heart, which is that, like, I've been struggling a lot with negativity, and I've always been like a very positive person, like a very balcony person. And for some reason or another, I found myself just like, you know, we sometimes in our lives, we are a source of negativity, and that expands to others too. And I guess this is like this idea of just looking for the positive in every soul, and like just developing that eye, and also the language. I think language is very important too. And to be kind to ourselves are also like this. But I guess it's all like the same way we be kind to ourselves. Like it's just a circle. If you're kind to others, we also learn to be kinder to ourselves. So it's love has to flow. So just to say that it answered a question that my soul had, I guess. So my heart had, not my, I don't know, my soul probably knows everything already, but yeah, so thank you. I'm gonna try to really put that into practice, to look for the beauty in every, you know, that when you look for beauty, you can look for beauty in every soul. And that's, those are the virtues, are beauty, the beauty of God reflected in every soul. So thank you for that.
Roxanne, that is so purposeful and trusting to go and do that. Shala, I wanted to just comment, because I think you brought up a really important issue about the Virtues Project, and is it Baha'i or is it, right? And Linda Kavlin Popov herself will say, this is not a Baha'i program. And what it is, it's the virtues cards, and it's 5 strategies. I actually had years ago, when I was bringing the Virtues Project into the high school to be the character development program there, I had I was at a conference for children's education in the Pike community, and the counselor was speaking, and very explicitly stated that, you know, if you're just doing the Virtues Project in your children's classes, this is not Baha'i education. So both from the Virtues Project, from within the Baha'i community, it was very clear that the Virtues Project was the Virtues Project. Baha'i education has a whole lot more going on there, you know, teaching us about Baha'u'llah, the Bab and Shoghi and Fendi and progressive revelation, and all of the principles of faith, which doesn't happen with the Virtues Project. So I felt I could go with a completely clean and clear conscience into a public school and do the Virtues Project, because while the people who created it, of course, are Baha'i, they created it as their active service to the world, as we all do, because we want to do our work to be an act of service, because in the Baha'i faith, just that work done in spirit of service is worship. So, I mean, how lucky was I? I get to be at prayer all day, every day as a teacher, because that is my service. So they created the Virtues Project and brought it to the world as an act of service. And I mean, sometimes you have those conversations with people about source and what is it really, but really it's been in public schools, it's been all over the world. It's very accessible, and because the virtues themselves, Dan Popov went and researched and studied all of the different sacred traditions in the world, the religions, the indigenous wisdom, and found the virtues from those sacred texts. And that was where they came from originally. So you've got this foundation that people can come to in unity from any different direction that they come from, any different belief system, and find a common ground, find unity.
She wanted to know who Linda was. That's when I said she was a Baha'i.
Oh.
I did explain to her from the beginning that they had looked at thousands of virtues from all religions and cultures and philosophy. And then they had reduced it to this 52 that we were going to be using.
Yeah.
But once she started using it, because of her background, she wanted to know if there were Christians, because it seemed to her such a very Christian project. And so, of course, when she asked me that, that was my response. I didn't.
Yeah, it's a very important conversation to have. It's so, I mean, that's terrific that you were able to do that, because it's such an important conversation to have that clarity.
And on that, like, it was nominated, it was selected during Year of the Family as a model by which families of all cultures and faiths could use to raise in their families. So, and it was also endorsed by the Dalai Lama. So it's the virtues are the foundation of all faiths.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, we all grow. Fawaz, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to give a little bit of a feedback of the work I have seen being done by both you and Patti. Unfortunately, I have never seen others in action, but I just wanted to say that in this age, in this time, connection is almost impossible. It is impossible for you to connect to your neighbors many a times, to someone who lives next to you for 30 years. And I don't say that, from the top of my, I really mean it.
Yeah.
And the connection that virtues has created for me, I see Renee sitting there, and for the life of me, it's like my sister sitting there. And, and I've seen Renee probably once a week for about an hour for a few months. And I had the opportunity to talk to Donna, who is participating in Joni's circle. And after about 40 minutes, I mean, this is meaningful conversation. Of course, we were guided because Joni has given us sentences by which we had to guide this conversation. I tell you, when I saw her the week afterward, because when we talked on WhatsApp, but when I saw her, I thought with myself, I have never seen this person before. Even if I saw her in the streets, there was no way I would have thought this is Donna. But then I have this heart-to-heart connection with her, so very deep. So basically what I'm saying is that for me, this connection, which stems from meaningful conversation, is at the crux of virtues. And by loving others, you will recognize your own virtues. And I just wanted to thank you all for being here, for my sisters, my virtue sisters, and our other friends who have joined us. This particular fireside was very meaningful for me. I am very grateful.
Fawaz, you're just First of all, I need to just let you know that when you speak, I hear the flowing of beauty and love coming out of you.
Mhm.
And honestly, you're a seeker of faith, of justice, your curiosity to really deep into things in a deeper way really resonate as the firesides that you've created for all of us. I've come to your firesides for the last year, not consistently, and I've been so moved by the people that you've brought forward to actually speak and awaken that humanity. So thank you. Shine through. Now, did somebody else have a question or want to say something? I think I might have seen another hand. Hold on.
I'll raise my real hand.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Patti and Joni, for hosting this today, and Patti for sharing about your journey with doing these sharing circles. I've been part of my sister Joni's circle for a few months now, and yeah, it's really beautiful. I just wanted to build on, I forget who it was now that said it, I think, about like, and also Farouz, about how there is a depth to these circles that is hard to come by. And we really do, especially here in the United States, but I think in other countries too, have a pandemic of loneliness. And that people, there's been some reporting journalism down here that has been really interesting, that people actually don't know how to form community. They don't know how to create the structures that allow for this kind of intimacy to emerge. And I just think that the Virtues Project and these sharing circles are doing some things that I have experienced in other communities that I'm part of that help with that. And I also am involved in education and social psychology research. So I'm bringing in a little bit of a researcher lens. That predictability is a really important human need. And predictability is such a central part of why I think these sharing circles are working, because it's the same time, like some of you have said, you can show up or not, but you know it's still there, you know, and also the predictability of the structure in the process. You know what you're getting into, you know that the structure is there and it's holding like a container. And the pieces of it that I've really come to appreciate is the beautiful song to open it with. I just did a workshop, 2-day workshop last week on racism in America, and they brought in the music piece in that workshop as well. And I realized like it's a way to give your soul a little bit of breathing space, to have art be brought into it. I just thought that was really something I wanted to appreciate and highlight, that appreciate the wisdom you all are bringing into this work, that there's evidence behind it. and Patti, I'm a qualitative researcher as well, so I appreciate you doing that work. Like really the intentionality that you brought to trying to understand and not have preconceived ideas about what is it that's meaningful for people, and really diving into that. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that feedback for sure.
Thank you, Jackie, for your really heartfelt wisdom sharing with us what was meaningful for you. Because, you know, as you said, our collective wisdom here tonight, we all are here together co-creating this as we are in the world. Did somebody else have their hand up? Try and look at the screen here, or have a question or something they wanted to share?
Joni, I just wanted to welcome Gibby for being here. There have been so many people, I couldn't find the names. I just saw her name. Love you, Gibby.
I'm sorry I was late getting here. I had another appointment. I might say one thing. I discovered the circle with Patti and sorry, Joni, maybe a couple of months ago. The friend who sent me a link did not tell me it was a Baha'i group. It was just something I would enjoy. I've hated labels on anything. The Christian friends who would say, these are Christian, whatever they talked about, Christian, I said, nobody has the monopoly. So I didn't want to go to any specific church or, you know, so it was open. I didn't know there would be any people who were Baha'is going there. I didn't know until, well, recently when I saw Joni somewhere else. but I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to Patti and Joni for what I've learned in just a few weeks. I don't know, maybe a couple of months. And for Rose, I've only seen her maybe twice. And what you said about feeling connected, I feel like you're my sister, your friend. It happens so quickly. And I don't want to analyze it, or I probably don't know how to analyze what's happening. It's bigger than what I could think about. So that's my little thought for now, that I'm so pleased to have discovered this, and I encourage anybody who'd like to go to a gathering to really go. Sometimes I have to push myself and talk like this. Now I don't plan anything. I said, well, somebody will help me, whatever. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I just turn on the video and you can see me. I might as well say something. But in the past, I would not have done that. I would have worried, well, about different things, how I looked at it. And with this group, that I'm not even thinking anymore. But it doesn't have to sound a special way. We're just ourselves. We're just ourselves expressing what we're feeling and thinking. So thank you so much. And nice to see all of you.
Thank you, Gibby, for your enthusiasm and share. I really appreciate that you're learning so much. And I just want to read a couple of things that were sent in the chat. Many thanks for such an inspiring talk, Ms. Patti. And of course, to both the wonderful hosts. That was from Luchi in Malaysia. And then Jackie, thank you all for an inspiring gathering. I need to jump off. Take care, everyone. So I think we're almost at the end of our time. And I think Ferouz, did you want to do some prayers following this?
Joni, darling, after 8:30, we would invite whoever would like to stay with us for half an hour. We say prayers from all different religions and backgrounds for the world and for the peace of this world and unity in this world. So whoever chooses to stay with us, they are more than welcome. Again, thank you very much to all of you. And I see both your faces, Patti and Joni, on my screen, and Gibby and Renee and others. I tell you, it brings tears to my eyes. Thank God for you, and thank God for Linda and Mr. Popoff and Linda's brother, and thank God for people who took this thing seriously. And, it's flying over the world.
It is.
Thank you so much, Ferouz.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for this beautiful space that you do create for all of us. So, yeah. And you're recording still? Did you want to continue recording?
I need you to be there.